Welcome to the Open Source Podcast. In this episode, episode 7, I'm joined with Jeevan Singh, a seasoned security professional with extensive experience in building and managing security programs at the likes of Segment, Twilio, and now Rippling. Today we talk about Jeevan's journey to date, explore some of the key elements of standing up a robust security program, and discuss the power of networking in the security field. Hey Jeevan, like I said, it's great to have you on, and welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bruce. It's great to be here. Always excited to team up with you and chat about security.
Absolutely. Well, let's dive straight into it then, and I'd love for you to give us a little bit of an overview on your career to date and experience, and how you've kind of found yourself directing security engineering at Rippling.
Yeah, it actually started back in university. When I was going through university, I took some interesting mathematic courses that were in error corrections itself, and really odd places, but I learned a lot about cryptography there. But more importantly, I had a friend that was really interested in security, and what he did was one day he pulled me into his house. He showed me all of the cool new security tricks that he has learned, and he cracked my password. I'm like, what? How did you do that? So that always piqued my interest there, and I joined the software development workforce, but I've always had a keen interest in security just because my friend, the schooling that I did, the mathematics back behind, and I eventually got into security. A VP of security joined an organization I was at. He knew I was sort of like the security guy for development, and he's like, "Why don't you join my org?" And I was reluctant at first because I knew my path in engineering software development, but I wasn't sure what that would look like in security. And um, it took me a month to make a decision, but once I made that decision, it was like the first day I knew this is the what I want to do for the rest of my life. It was security was so dynamic, it was so challenging that it was great. So spent built up the security team there. Moved a couple of organizations afterwards. So Zenefits built up the security team there. Segment had a really strong security team. So got to focus a lot more on security research and how to scale security within organizations. Got acquired by Twilio, which was fantastic. It was a large security org that had a lot of different challenges. We rebuilt the product security team there and delivered a lot of major successes for them. And then looking for a change, I joined Rippling. I actually joined as an IC at Rippling. I want to get more hands-on. And 6 weeks in, my peer that was running the product security team had an opportunity he couldn't refuse. So I ended up taking over the product security team at Rippling.
That's so great. It's such a good story, and your passion always resonates through every time we've spoken and met up. It's one thing that I always come away with is your passion for security is second to none. And I know a lot of security practitioners. Yeah, I always really value that, and can see that shine through. And like you mentioned there, I know you always like to be hands-on, and you're a builder at heart, and you enjoy that side of things. But what you keep getting drawn back into leadership, and clearly you have those incredible qualities to be a great leader. What do you think lends to being a successful leader within a security org?
Yeah, security has changed so much since I started. And when I started, that initial VP of security, he told me about how security was done in the past. And in the past, security was more of a no, you can't do this, you shouldn't do that. And he really taught me that no, security should be a enablement org, and we should work and partner with engineering and find ways to for them to do the right thing. And this was about a decade ago.
Wow.
And that's really resonated with me. And all the leaders that I've worked with in the past are all have that same value as well. So one of the things that I really think that all security leaders should have is you need a lot of empathy, not just for the people within your org, but for the people that you work with as well, understanding their viewpoints, and then helping get to a satisfactory resolution for both security and engineering. You need to have your org needs to have a lot of psychological safety. People are always too afraid to speak up and really provide their thoughts. And most world-class orgs will have a lot of psychological safety. Anyone can speak up and say anything. So you need to make sure that you have strong psychological safety there. And then for me, like in particular, the technical bar has to be very high as well. Unfortunately, our engineering teams grow at a much faster pace than security teams. So you need a really strong technical bar to make sure that the people on your team can influence other folks, have strong application security skills, are very good at program management, but most importantly, are good at software development and writing automations, because that's the only way that we keep up. We have to build our own features, automations, functionality, so that we can keep up with our engineering counterparts.
Definitely. I think you touching on the psychological safety there. How do you foster that within your teams? Is it a case of being very open and direct of you have a voice and a seat at the table, or how do you build that from right the way down from yourself or CISO all the way down to whether it's a security engineer or a SOC analyst within your organization?
Yeah, I think Twilio was a great example for this. I took over the product security team at Twilio, and we had a lot of folks that were there, and they felt that who's this outsider? He came from Segment, and he's taking over the Twilio team. And first thing I did was I made sure that I established very frequent one-on-ones so people understand who I am. And then really challenging people to provide me feedback, constructive feedback on how I can do things better. I didn't understand the Twilio culture or ecosystem nearly as well as Segment. So getting their feedback and understanding how I should be approaching problems with a Twilio lens led to a lot more trust being established. And then making sure that I challenge them within meetings, saying that, hey, I haven't heard from you in some time. What do you think about this particular subject? And making sure that like whatever they say, we all understand it, take it with grace, and yeah, really making sure that those lines of communications are open up. And then also on the flip side, is shutting down toxic behavior. There's no room for that on any of my teams. So if I notice that someone is toxic, I pull them aside, really let them know that this behavior is not acceptable, and these are the things that I expect from you as a person, as part of this team.
Definitely, and world class teams have followed you, and I don't think it's they've followed you, but do you know what I mean? Like you've always been a part of these great teams, and you're able to assemble them really well. And you look at that Twilio segment team from security, and where a lot of the people have gone, and they're absolute rock stars, and they're flying within their careers. And I think it seems so ironic, really, that actually being clear, being transparent, fosters that trust, that psychological safety, and also then builds a team of incredible collaboration and excellence. And I think sometimes people can overcomplicate those aspects to leadership and management, for sure. It also helps. I know that you had a great recruiting team at Twilio. Shout out to my fellow Brit, Grady Lancaster. He's a fantastic guy, and I know that they did a great job from a hiring standpoint as well. Well, it's been a remarkable journey for you today. I think everyone can agree that knows you. What's shifting gears a little bit? I'd love to kind of get your perspective on how you come into Twilio, or you coming into Rippling and going, right, maybe we're at this maturation point in security. How do you start to go, where do I need to prioritize, and what do I need to deliver from as a leader to set that strategic direction?
Yeah, I think Rippling is a great example of that. I came in And the first, I want to say about 4 to 6 weeks, I just spent a lot of time listening. I chatted with a lot of the engineering org, chatted with everyone on the security org as well, and just want to understand what was important from their standpoint and what do they think of the current program as well. And once I had all that data, I was able to sort of synthesize my vision for where we want to go and which order we want to work on these projects as well. So, and as a person that really enjoys data, I spent a lot of time trying to discover the data that I needed to make these decisions, and sometimes it's not there. If it's not there, that's another data point in itself. That means that I need to create that data itself. So if I'm looking at Rippling, there are three themes that I think that we really not need to spend a lot more time on. And first was building a foundation, and within that, I have a number of items that I really care about, and security tooling, culture, data are some of those aspects of it, of building a foundation. So I want to make sure that I have my five foundational security tools on the AppSec side of things. So I really care about SAST, SEA, secret scanning, API security, and bug bounty. Having those in place, making sure that we pull the data from there and centralize the data really helps us understand the classes of vulnerabilities that we have in our ecosystem and which ones that we want to remediate first. Culture is really important as part of building the foundation.
Yeah.
People need to understand why product security is there. What is our purpose? What are we trying to solve for the business? So work really closely with the VP of securities. We have five of them at Rippling, and make sure that they understand how they can leverage us and how to move forward there. And then we talked a little bit about the data. So pulling data from our security tools, but also data from other parts of the ecosystem. So it could be vulnerability data, it could be hiring data, and really understanding how we can iterate and move forward. So that's building a foundation. I talk a lot about operational excellence as well. So you have all this data, you have all these vulnerabilities. Is that the end of the road? No, like you want to make sure that you have strong SLA, SLOs for the business and you adhere to that. And at the beginning, we're doing not great, which is something that we really worked hard on. And we had to understand Rippling as an organization and how we do things there. And a lot of the work is done through Slack. So sending out emails about vulnerabilities doesn't make sense. That's not where all the developers are. So really fitting into the culture of things to make sure that we do anything that operational work we do excellent. And last theme that I like to focus on is burning down risk. Ultimately, that's the
Yeah.
only reason that we're hired for at an organization. So having a really strong risk register and leveraging that to build your projects for quarter on quarter, and making sure that you're really focusing on the biggest risks that you're communicating with the organization. So let's start remediating on that. So building a foundation, operational excellence, and burning down risk are the themes that I really like to focus on when joining organizations.
Absolutely. No, that makes such sense. And for you being able to almost zoom out, but then get into the data as well. And I can imagine it's coming from quite disparate systems at times as well, and in different formats. And then being able to translate that into tangible kind of deliverables or milestones that you want to achieve is really impressive. For
Yeah,
somebody,
like
sorry,
as a security leader, you have to be a real good storyteller. You have to really understand the data and tell the story about the data so that you can drive the right outcome. So, for me coming in, it was really understanding that data and creating that vision, and first initially selling the product security team that vision, saying, "This is the direction we want to go. This is why it's important to go in this direction. This is the business value that will generate for Rippling itself." And then once the team is sold, then it's selling that story to the engineering org and engineering leadership and saying, okay, these are the things that we are noticing. These are the reasons why it's important that we focus in these areas. And this is how I need you to help as well. So getting that data, making sure that you have your story, and then going around marketing your story to everyone that's willing to listen.
But when engaging with engineering orgs, and this is a question I get quite a lot from people who maybe are sat at a staff engineer, principal engineer role, engineering manager, and they're ready to they want to take that leap into senior leadership. What are some of the biggest pushbacks that you tend to get from engineering, or kind of maybe that's the wrong word to use, but kind of some of the biggest concerns from engineering when you're looking to deliver some of these security initiatives?
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with contention with product. So, where do I spend my time? I got product hitting me up with this, and I have security hitting me up with that.
Yeah,
And there's just a lot of friction with that. And the way that I like to start is I ask for an inch, but I'll take a yard type of mentality itself. Or for those that are good at metrics, at metric, take a centimeter and take a meter.
yeah,
And what I did at both at Twilio and Rippling is that I had a very low bar for success initially.
yeah,
And I'm looking at the long term. I'm not looking for success in a quarter or multiple quarters. I'm looking at success at a multi-year stage. So we talk about operational excellence and vulnerabilities, and at both of those orgs, a number of vulnerabilities, and they were not getting remediated for various reasons. Twilio, the workflow wasn't set up well. So once we changed the workflow, it made it a lot easier for engineering to understand what exactly security wants. And at Rippling, we hadn't built up that culture, that muscle. So really focus on building up muscle, security muscle within organizations. Start very slow. My initial goal was like, let's only fix the critical issues. Let's not worry about high, medium, low issues at all. Let's only focus on the most critical of issues. Let's take a quarter.
yeah,
So, like well before the quarter would begin, I start communicating that story to leadership, engineering leadership, and get alignment. Everyone thinks it's important to fix your critical vulnerabilities. That you don't need too much alignment there with respect to that. So once you have alignment there, you set the goal, you report very frequently on the go, make sure that everyone understands where their org is with respect to that goal. If some folks are falling behind, you work with that leadership team and say, hey, I noticed that these three teams in your org are not able to fix these critical vulnerabilities. I need some support from you to really push down on them and let them know how important it is to get this done before the end of the quarter. So get that top-down support that you need. And by the end of the quarter, you'll probably hit 90-95% of your goal. So that's that low bar. Now let's build a tiny bit above that bar. So you might have high vulnerabilities, and then you may say that you don't have to fix all the high vulnerabilities. This category of high vulnerabilities that you want to fix. So anything new critical coming in, you're expecting it to be fixed. High, this 1/3 of the highs that we want to fix. So now you have a third of the high and the criticals that are being fixed, and then you continually build up that muscle, get them used to doing it. And after a year, you'll notice that your find versus fix ratio is in a much better place. You're fixing a lot more than you're finding. So now I'm going to be starting taking that like vulnerabilities from different sources. So it's really building that muscle, building that culture, building that expectation that you need to do things. And then the friction that you had initially with product, with getting things done, it slowly dissipates over time as well. And during that time, you also spend a lot of time with product, letting them know why it's important to do security initiatives.
absolutely. And how do you? You've built some incredible tools, right? In your time at Twilio segment, and I'm sure now at Rippling as well, internal tools the team has built. And how do you decide on those trade offs between hey, we're going to build versus buy? What does that process look like for you as a leader?
Yeah, I optimize a lot for actually buying rather than building. So a lot of the times, there's no tool like this in the market. Twilio is a great example where we ended up building our own ASPM, application
Yep.
security posture management tool, because there wasn't many options, or it was very early on days for ASPMs in the market. So we had this great need. Didn't understand the amount of vulnerabilities or areas of our ecosystem that had all these vulnerabilities, or the total security technical debt for these areas of the ecosystem. So we actually ended up building our own internal ASPM. And yeah, like it always depends on your need. And again, I typically optimize for buying, just because I know I want to spend those cycles working on other work. So if there is a tool that is in the ecosystem, I will try buying it first rather than trying to build it. Um, it's easier to yell at a vendor than it is to yell at your own team if something goes wrong. Yeah, I definitely optimize for that, but I also look at like what are our needs. So and if this vendor will be able to fulfill our needs. So yeah, a lot of the time I will be, it's that buy versus build actual calculation. What makes more sense? What makes sense in the short term? What makes sense in the longer term? And who who's going to actually maintain all of this? So I always want to free up my engineers to make sure that they're doing work that is impactful. We're remediating classes of vulnerability. And if that is the only way we can do it is through building tools, we'll absolutely build tools.
Definitely, yeah. And, maybe, yeah. I suppose having your key vendors probably and relationships that you have is so important. I've been to the RSA halls and many other conferences, and different magic tricks that get thrown at you, vending machines, the magic claws that come in. There's some crazy, wonderful, and wild ways to try and hook people in nowadays. It's quite funny.
Yeah, I love chatting with vendors just in general. I hope I probably shouldn't have said that. Now I'll have a lot of vendors reach out to me. But what I feel like chatting, especially with the smaller vendors, I'm looking into the future.
Yeah,
They're solving problems that I will encounter, like I will consider big deal in a year or two from now. So chatting with them, understanding the problems that they're trying to solve, it helps me relate on how do I inform that. It helps inform my backlog and my vision as well. So yeah, I love speaking with smaller vendors just in general.
definitely. And there's so many incredible startups that are growing right now and building fantastic security solutions. You're doing my job for me here, Jeevan. You're segueing into where we want to go. With with like looking to the horizon and some of the problems that you see in a year, 2 years down the line. What are some of those? And obviously, I think AI is probably going to play a large impact on what our security landscape and ecosystems look like.
Yeah,
But what are some of those for you?
that's a great point. Like AI is going to play a bigger, more significant role in general. And what what I'm what my bigger concern, there's a few big concerns that I have just in general. One is like reducing the burden on our engineering teams. I don't want them to fix all of the things. I want them to fix all of the important things. And a lot of tools now are having reachability analysis. So
Yeah.
I remember doing a POC with a SCA vendor recently, and when looking at the results, only 3% of our SCA findings were reachable. So um, if that played, if that was consistent throughout my career, that means 97% of the time I've forced engineering to fix things that didn't matter enough.
Yeah.
So I would rather use that engineering time to focus on other more important risk-based items. So reachability, a lot of these tools are now looking at aggregating all of your security tooling data and figuring out reducing the noise itself. Again, that goes back to sort of reachability, but really impact. And that's when we talk about building world-class security teams, I always go back to impact itself. What is the impact that we're having on the business? If we were to do this particular project, what impact will it have? How much risk do we reduce? How do we reduce the attack surface? So having these tools be able to let you know what vulnerabilities are very impactful and how much risk you reduce has been like looks very interesting in itself. And now we're also starting to see a lot of the security co-pilot type of tooling out there as
Yeah.
well, where as you code, is letting you know, hey, this might be problematic. You rather not, you shouldn't do this. There are a lot of different ways that AI tools are going to help us really inform our security program, where it's really focusing on what vulnerabilities are important to you, how you write code to make sure that you're not introducing a lot of new vulnerabilities. And I've even started seeing some pop up where they will help you with threat modeling as well. What are the
Nice.
important risks that are as a part of your ecosystem, your new feature that you're building out? And how do we sort of build out controls to reduce those risks themselves? So, yeah, a lot of interesting things coming down the pipeline. Not very. I'm waiting until the features stabilize and
Yeah.
we can actually see the results. So, but like the research going on these fields are is just incredible. So it feels like in the future we can do a lot more with a lot fewer folks in itself.
Definitely. And I think one of the interesting conundrums right now is what effect is that going to have on skill sets required within security, and engineering as well, right? Is what does that shape? How does that take shape? You would look at like product and application security over the last number of years, we've gone much more technical, right? And coding has become more and more important. Automation's become more and more important. And I wonder where that shift is going to go next, in terms of skill sets required, and what roles are going to look like as we continue to build security engineering orgs.
Yeah,
Um,
the future is going to be wild. But what I'm hoping is that, like, I do expect smaller security teams, but I'm hoping that there can be a lot more security teams. There's going to
yeah,
be even like even at today, I've seen a lot more the startups. They're hiring security folks, or like when there's 10 engineers, which was unheard of when I started security.
yeah,
Like um, you be 300 people before you think about your first security hire. And now, as time goes on, security has been become more and more important. There are folks that are talking to about security folks, or even having a fractional security person involved with their business very much early on days. So, yeah, I do hope that AI disrupts a lot of the stuff that we do, but it helps us spread out to a lot more organizations so that we can have a lot more influence and write much more secure code.
and I think it's interesting even today, and it's sad to say, but I see so many companies and startups that go, "Hey, we've had an awesome security team. They've built this great security program, and now we can pump the brakes, right, or even go backwards." And that's so naive and tough to see, because, like you say, the vulnerabilities, and they have done always, but changing all the time, and even at an even more rapid pace now. And I think even our adversaries, probably are not anywhere near their optimal of how they can leverage and utilize AI to attack companies. So I think it's going to be an interesting space, and I think you'd be very naive to taper back any investment in security right now, even with tough economic conditions.
Yeah, you're also just talking about the organizational aspects of it. It's going to be interesting the type of attacks that will have it at a person to person basis as well. I've
Mhm.
already warned my family that, hey, if someone sounds like me on the phone, it could be someone that, like, I've been on a bunch of podcasts, so it might be someone using my
Yeah.
voice. So we'll have to have a code word for if I'm asking for something ridiculous in itself. So, like, I'm definitely worried even on the personal aspect of what we need to do to secure our home.
Definitely. I mean, even you even look at the sophistication of video AI now as well on calls is mind blowing. I saw a post from HeyGen just a couple of days ago, the startup, and I think it's incredible technology, but it's insane to see the advancements that they've made in such a short period of time,
Yeah.
as well. It's almost seamless, that you're on a call with somebody.
Yeah, you talked a little bit about skill sets for future engineers, and AI security is definitely going to be something that is required. And fortunately, like, I'm a big fan of the community and OWASP itself. There are a lot of tools out there to sort of help you navigate this new AI world that we're living in.
Definitely, definitely. Well, shifting gears again a little bit here, um, building connections, obviously in security is invaluable, especially when it comes to being a security leader, and you want to be able to draw upon that network to build best in class teams. What's your take on the most impactful avenues of networking? I've seen you at events everywhere. We're both pretty tall, so we're hard to miss. But what's been most important for you as you've built meaningful connections throughout your career?
Yeah, that's a great question. I go back to that first VP of security that I worked with. He had a network security background, and he told me, Jeevan, I can only take you certain lengths, and then you have to learn things on your own. Because with me given AppSec background, and that's really forced me out of my comfort zone. I'm definitely an introvert, and I love just being by myself and not talking to anyone, just in general. But getting out there, I think like the most important thing is just being out there, being present, providing your thoughts and your opinions as a leader. The best hiring tool that I have is going to conferences and speaking at conferences and letting people know how I think, because the type of people that I want to hire are going to be understand my vision, the way that I think, and align to that. And if they understand who I am before they even apply to any of my roles, that just makes it so much easier as a leader in
Yeah,
itself. So I've encouraged a lot of security leaders to blog, to podcast, to speak at meetups, at conferences, and those that have naturally attract the type of people that they are themselves. So, Colleen is a great example. Colleen Coolidge, I work with her at Segment, and a lot of the first people that worked on her team, we all caught her video at speaking at, I think, besides SF in 2016 or 2017. And um, I was part of the interview process, chatted with everyone when it's time to make a decision. I want to do a little bit of research on the CISO there, Colleen. Watched that video and I was like, I'm sold. Colleen is very intelligent. I love how she approaches building teams. I love how she's thinking about building programs. I want to be a part of that organization. And as a leader, if you go out there and talk about who you are, what you're about, you'll naturally find people that will get sold before you ever talk to them.
definitely. And there's such a big opportunity to be a part of events now, whether it's speaking, participant, attendee. There's bird of a feather type conversations happening all the time. So yeah, I completely agree. And I speak to so many candidates and people that are looking to step into leadership or even kind of get their first role in tech. I talk about this 360 kind of model of your resume nowadays is just the window, right? It's kind of like a notice in the window. You want to walk into the shop and have all these different aspects to you, whether that is contribution to open source projects, talks, blogs, etc. And then you cannot replace meeting people in person. It's incredible. And shout out or call out that the call for papers is open for B-side San Francisco right now. So everyone get who listens, get on there and register. But Jeevan, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you today and learn a little bit more about your approach to leadership and looking into the future of security. I know that the listeners will find this extremely valuable, and it's great to see it get a small window into your day to day. But I really appreciate you coming on, and thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And if anyone, I'm a huge contributor back to the community. I felt that when I was starting out in security, the community gave me so much. So I'm constantly giving back to the community. So if anyone ever has questions, they can hit me up on LinkedIn. I might be a day or two slow to answer, but I will definitely answer your question.
Definitely. Well, thank you very much, Jeevan, and I look forward to seeing you at a future event.
100%. Well, I'll definitely see you at B-Sides SF.
100%. Speak to you soon.